we're going to move to the next presentation with Claire, who's continuing with the same idea and is presenting the development of a questionnaire to evaluate the quality of life of dogs with chronic enteropathy.
So, good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here today to present the results of our latest study on the development of a health-related questionnaire for quality of life assessment in dogs with chronic enteropathy. Clinical management of chronic enteropathies is based on a therapeutic escalation, beginning with dietary modifications and followed by modulation of the gut microbiota. When clinical response remains insufficient, immunosuppressants may be considered despite a wide range of adverse effects. So, assessing clinical response remains essential to guide therapeutic decisions and avoid unnecessary escalation. But defining a clinical response is more challenging than it may initially appear and depends on the available assessment tools and the standardization of their use. In human gastroenterology, such as Crohn's disease, clinical indices like the Crohn's disease activity index and the Harvey-Bradshaw index are available with cutoff values to classify patients as responders or non-responders. Patient-reported outcomes, such as symptom-based or health-related quality of life tools, are also incorporated as endpoints to capture treatment effects from the patient perspective and to assess broader physical, emotional, and social dimensions. In dogs with chronic enteropathy, only clinical indices such as CIBDI and CICAI are used to monitor disease severity, and their use lacks standardization across clinical trials. To date, no validated owner-reported outcome measures have been developed. However, incorporating them in the assessment of the clinical response appear very relevant, as reliance on the owner perspective is inherent to veterinary medicine. So, treatment benefits cannot be fully dissociated from its broader impact on the owner, including treatment burden, financial cost, and constraints on the daily and social life. Therefore, the present study focuses on the quality of life dimension with the objective of developing and validating a questionnaire to assess health-related quality of life in dogs with chronic enteropathy. A psychometric method was used, as previously described in veterinary and human gastroenterology. There were 3 steps: the initial questionnaire building, the questionnaire refinement, and the questionnaire validation. For the initial questionnaire building, Group A, composed of 4 others, defines domains in both French and English through a literature review and quality of life tools in veterinary and human gastroenterology. Within each domain, Group A drafted questions, referred to as items, using a frequency scale and a perceived impact scale. For example, for the items defecation frequency, the first, more objective question was, what is the defecation frequency of your dog? And the second, more subjective question was, how strongly do you feel this impacts your dog's quality of life? Then, these items were reviewed by Group B, including 7 veterinarians to assess content relevance, comprehensiveness, and completeness. The resulting list was tested by Group C, composed of 5 dog owners with no medical background to ensure item clarity and comprehensiveness. The finalized items compose the initial questionnaire. Both English and French questionnaires were distributed to any dog's owner, and owners was instructed to complete the questionnaire based on the dog's condition during the past 4 weeks, to provide an overall quality of life score using a 10-point scale, hereafter referred to as the overall score, and to assign their dogs to 1 of 3 categories: chronic enteropathy group, other chronic disease group, and healthy group. For the questionnaire refinement, item was submitted to 2 assessments: assessment of consistency with the other items, to remove those that there were insufficiency consistent with others, and assessment of redundancy, to remove items that they were excessively redundant. Finally, a quality of life score was calculated and named the total score. Construct validity was assessed by testing the association between the total score and the overall score in the chronic enteropathy group, and intergroup comparisons were considered a secondary supportive check of construct validity. So let's now move on to the results. The initial questionnaire consisted of 45 items divided into 4 domains, 3 dog-related domains: gastrointestinal, dietary, and urinary, appearance and physical condition, behavior and activity, and 1 owner-related domain. 351 responses were complete and included in the analysis, and most respondents completed the questionnaire in French. Based on owner classification, 141 responses were assigned to the chronic enteropathy group, 84 to the other chronic disease group, and 126 to the healthy group. 12 items were removed during the questionnaire refinement, so the final questionnaire included 33 items. The remaining items are presented here: 11 items in the domain 1, gastrointestinal, dietary, and urinary, 6 items in the domain 2, appearance and physical condition, 5 items in the domain 3, behavior and activity, and 11 items in the domain 4, the owner-related domain. The overall internal consistency was excellent, with a Cronbach alpha of 0.91, and the total score was comprised between 0, the best quality of life, and 496, the worst quality of life. In the chronic enteropathy group, the total score and the overall score were strongly and inversely correlated, with a Spearman's correlation coefficient of negative 0.61. So the questionnaire was valid. Median total score was significantly higher in the chronic enteropathy group compared to the other chronic disease group and the healthy group, so these results support the construct validity. Another interesting finding was the comparison of the mean item scores in the chronic enteropathy group. The mean score of each item were sorted in descending order, so the items with the higher scores were on the left, and the items with the lower score were on the right. Higher scores mean a greater impact on quality of life. So the items with the greatest impact were exclusively owner-related, including emotional and financial burdens, treatment failures, and dietary restrictions. And conversely, the items with the lowest impact were mainly dog-related items. So the final instrument, composed of 33 items, was shown to be valid, making it suitable for both clinical and research use. The number of items is comparable to other validated quality of life tools, and the psychometric method enhances its robustness. The dual scale design, assessing both frequency and perceived impact of each item, provides a nuanced view of disease burden, distinguishing this tool from clinical indices such as CIBDI and CCAI. Items contributing most to the total score were owner-related, and in particular, the strong impact of perceived burden from failed treatments highlight the psychological strain caused by repeated therapeutic trials, which are very common in chronic enteropathies. So these patterns reinforce the importance of caregiver burden. These findings highlight the value of incorporating subjective burden of disease, including owner well-being, both in clinical decision-making and as an outcome variable in clinical research. This represents an important step forward. Nevertheless, several domains still need to be explored to further improve the assessment of clinical response. So, results are very promising, but future work is necessary. This study used a single cohort to construct and evaluate the tool, so further testing in external populations is required to confirm external validation. Future work should also include formal cross-cultural validation to ensure applicability across diverse linguistic and cultural contexts. The assessment of intra-rater repeatability and inter-rater reproducibility is essential for score interpretation, so future study with larger, prospectively defined cohorts will be required to formally evaluate this. And finally, demonstrating responsiveness is also essential for its long-term clinical use and for application in clinical study. Therefore, future longitudinal studies are needed to evaluate it. Several limitations should be considered. Disease classification were based on owner report without clinical verification. As with most survey-based research, recall and selection biases are possible. And although the tools were available in 2 languages, linguistic nuances were not specifically analyzed. So to conclude, this is the first validated health-related quality of life tools developed specifically for dogs with chronic enteropathy. And after more than a year and a half of work, this study was recently accepted in the Journal of Veterinary Internal Medicine. The paper will be published at any moment, possibly even by the next coffee break, maybe. And we thank ILS for funding this project, including the publication fees. And thanks to the industrial consortium, we were also able to create a website, MyDogQL, to facilitate its use. It is available in French and English and free for everyone. Completing the questionnaire takes approximately 10 minutes. The results look like this, with the quality of life score, the total score, and the details for each domain. This page can be printed or sent by email to the owner and the veterinarian. This website is also suitable for research use. Researchers can create an account and register that project using a code. Owners included in a project can enter the code at the beginning of the questionnaire. So to summarize, these are the key points I wanted to share today. This website is accessible using the QR code. And thank you for your attention, and I will be very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Claire. I forgot to introduce Claire. Claire is an assistant in internal medicine in Oniris here, and she's starting a PhD on strategies to modulate the gut microbiota. So is there any questions either in the room? Yes?
Thank you for your presentation. So my question is for Claire. You established a score value with to work for the quality of life of dogs with enteropathy. But presently, Dr. Merrick talked about how there is a need for a clinically interpretation. So how do you interpret your score value? Is there a cutoff to say if the dog has a poor, good, or medium quality of life?
Yes, this is a very good question, but it's currently very challenging to provide an answer. I can use a previous graph to explain why. Because, for example, a score of 100 is present in the chronic enteropathy group, but also in the healthy group. And in the same way, a total score of 100 was observed in dogs with a very good overall quality of life, but also in dogs with a very poor overall quality of life. So obviously a score above 300 may indicate a very poor quality of life and may suggest an escalation on the next step to the next step of the therapeutic approach. But standardization is really necessary, as previously discussed, for the clinical indices, and will be the subject of future dedicated projects.
Maybe at this time, this tool can be used to follow the quality of life, but not at an absolute value.